Hey there. Thanks for joining us for Tales of Misadventure, a podcast all about business blunders. On this podcast, Nicole Donnelly, founder of DMG Digital, talks to entrepreneurs and learns how they turn their lemons into lemonade. DMG Digital is a content marketing agency focused on helping manufacturers attract new buyers through digital self-serve. Nicole Donnelly is a fourth-generation entrepreneur, a girl mom, and an avid traveler. Now, let's head into a tale of misadventure with your host, Nicole Donnelly.
Hello, and welcome to our show, Tales of Misadventure, with me, Nicole Donnelly. I'm the founder and president of DMG Digital. So I'm here with Dr. Amir Rashidian, and Amir is doing such great work as a chiropractor. I just want to give our guests a little bit of a background on Dr. Rashidian, who he is, and all about the magic of what he's doing. So he is the founder of the Mid-Atlantic Chiropractic Center. This center was established in 2006 and serves over 18,000 patients annually. And what's really unique about this specific center is they focus on high-tech diagnostics to detect and correct disturbances in the nervous system and are really focused on promoting drugless health solutions, which I think all of us could really learn more about and try to implement more. So I'm excited to talk about that. And he's also serves on the board of directors for Habitat for Humanity, which I can't wait for us to talk further about his experience there, and is also the chairman of the elder leadership team at Grace Community Church. He's won multiple honors and awards, including Business Leader of the Year and Philanthropist of the Year. And he's also been happily married since 2005 and has 3 sons. Welcome to the show, Dr. Rashidian. It's so great to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
It's my honor and pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, very good. So our show is all about our show is all about entrepreneurs, and we love to interview entrepreneurs like yourself and really talk about kind of reducing the stigma of what it's like to be a business owner and this idea that you have it all figured out and you never make mistakes and it's just like smooth sailing, right? So we want to kind of like reduce the stigma there and really focus in on those times when things go wrong. What happened? What were those failures? And more specifically, what is it that entrepreneurs are doing like yourself when those failures come to turn them into opportunity? So that's kind of like what we love to talk about on the show. Can't wait to dive into that with you. But before we do, I love to start with this first question just to kind of like get to know a little bit about you personally and what you love to do. If you could describe a perfect day in the life, like if you could be doing anything that you wanted with anyone that you wanted, wherever you wanted to be, what would that day look like and what would you be doing?
So I've had many perfect days. So it's it's not a fictional thing. I tell you, for my 10-year wedding anniversary, my wife and I went to an island in the British Virgin Islands, and we were on a beach that literally it was us, and a mile down the beach was another couple, and there's nobody else there, and it was amazing. And we spent our days editing my first book so that we could get it published. And so I like beaches. I love spending time with my wife, Brandy, and I enjoy finishing projects. So I feel like if I had anything I could do and I had the freedom to do it as much as I wanted, I'd probably be working on some kind of project that excites me. I'd be doing it with her. And if I could do it on a beach, that's where I would be.
Oh, I love that. Like finding that balance of or integration, if you will, of the personal, professional, your passion, and all of that. So love that. And I love beaches too. And the Virgin Islands is such a stunning place to be, especially the British Virgin Islands. I've only been there once, and I'll never forget just how those beautiful jewel hills coming out of the turquoise ocean, just beautiful. So tell me, what project are you what's exciting you now? You just mentioned you love projects and you like to dive in. What project are you working on now that's got you all excited?
Well, so I'm in the thick of promoting my second book. So which is why I'd like to be here and speak to your audience and to you as well. But also, it was a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. My wife and I were in this beautiful resort, 6-star resort in Arizona, having a blast. And I just in conversation, I said, I feel like we've gotten a little too soft. And
Interesting.
I feel like we're comfortable where we are. We have two offices, a team of about 15 people, three doctors, and things are rolling and things are smooth. I said, I think we're too soft, we're too comfortable. I liked how it felt when we were just getting started. I want to get back to that. So what do you think we should do? And we kind of talked about it that day in the pool, and we said, I think we should maybe expand and grow more, and maybe we're not done. Maybe we need to go for something bigger. So we said, all right, what if we take what we have as an organization and multiply it by 100? How would that look? How would that work? And we just
Wow.
started brainstorming. And what's funny is when you start to make a decision like that and you decide, hey, I want to get uncomfortable again, well, the universe, God, everybody kind of conspires to make that come true. So we came back and things started to kind of fall apart, and we had to kind of rebuild the organization, and we went from there. But that's the plan, is just to grow. I think our brand of healthcare is something that's unique. It's different than what people understand about healthcare and wellness and chiropractic care. And also, a lot of people have a misconception about what stress is and how to handle stress properly. We focus on reducing stress, but we don't even have a good definition of what that stress is. So we're going to get that word out, and we're going to open up more centers and really make the communities around us healthier.
Oh, I love it. And I think that this book that you've just written talks all about stress, right? And I think that is so needed today. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about stress. I think a certain amount of stress is good and healthy to have, but understanding how much is too much and all of that. So tell us a little bit more about what people can expect from your book and what your point of view is on stress and how we can be managing it. Here in the DC area where you and I both live, I think it's a very common part of our everyday lives, right? So
Oh
tell
my
me more about
goodness.
that.
Absolutely. Everyone has been under stress, and everyone knows what it feels like when you're overwhelmed by
Yeah.
things. But what I want to make real, and this is the part that's a little controversial, is
Mhm.
that you can't have or be or do anything you want without stress. Nicole, you run this amazing podcast. You help so many people, but you can't tell me it's free from stress. And in fact, the larger your audience becomes, the more stress you're going to have, because the more responses you're going to get, the more comments you're going to get, the more criticism you're going to get, and that now you have to manage large number of guests, and your budget changes and everything. It just So the bigger you want to get, the more stress you have to be willing to take on. It's the same with higher education. Let's say you want to go for a you know higher college degree. Well, that's going to come with stress, and you want to grow your family. Every child you have, your stress doubles.
That
Have a
is
great
so
marriage, you better be willing to take on some stress. No, there's no marriage that's stress free. And if you want to grow your business, which is what most of us here do, you better be willing to take on the stress. It's like the prize fighter who's about to step into the ring and fight.
yeah.
He doesn't just step in the ring and fight. He trains for it. So what you
Yeah.
have to understand is you want to grow. So I'll say this: your level of health is determined exactly by how much stress you can safely handle, and
Mhm.
how successful you become is also dependent on how much stress you can safely handle. So then take it one step further, your income is determined by how much stress you can safely handle. So you want to make a larger income, be more successful, grow bigger, go further, and be healthier. You cannot reduce stress. It doesn't work that way. It's like me going to the gym, and every time I go to the gym, I lift less weight than I did the day before. I'm not going to get stronger. I'm going to
So,
get weaker. And eventually, the weight I used to be able to lift, I can't lift anymore.
oh,
So you have got to invite the stress. See, I've studied the successful people on the planet, and you're one of them. I guarantee there are people who look at you, go, Nicole, how do you get so much done in one day? I can't get that much done in a week. How are you doing all that? And you go, I don't know. I just do it. Well, it's because of who you are. You grew into that. Just
yeah.
like first grade was difficult when you had to spell three-letter words of rat, bat, cat, and hat.
Mhm.
But when you were in 12th grade, someone gave you a spelling test with three-letter words, you wouldn't have any problems with it. So you grow into that. The first employee you hire is tremendous stress on you. Oh my goodness,
Mhm.
now I'm responsible for another person. and I have to make payroll, and I have to make sure we market enough and produce enough, not to just feed me and my family, but there's another family that's dependent on it. And then you get used to that. So we get to a point where, yeah, I don't have too many employees. 15, it's not a big number by any standard. But if I go back to just one or two employees, I would think it's so easy. I don't know why I was ever stressed out. So the goal is adaptation. See, the human body is designed to adapt under stress. So if you want to adapt, you have to bring in the stress. But you can't put too much, like you said it eloquently earlier, you can't put too much into you. So
Yeah.
there's a formula. And the formula is, imagine that you have a gap. GAP stands for the general adaptation potential, meaning this is how much stress you can safely adapt to. If your stress level goes above the gap, higher than that gap, you will be susceptible to illness and injury. As long as your stress level stays underneath, you're not susceptible to illness and injury. So, an example, it's springtime, everybody's putting mulch in their garden. Let's say you go and spread mulch for 3 days in a row. The first day, no problem. Second day, no problem. Third day, you go out, you throw out your back. You go, well, what's different? I did it 2 other days and it didn't hurt me, but this one did. Well, what did you eat last night? I ate some Chinese food with some MSG in it. Okay, that just inflamed your body. Then what happened this morning before you went outside? I had a fight with my spouse or my partner, and now I go out there. Now I add the physical stress to the emotional stress I was already under, and the chemical stress of the inflammation in my body. And the minute I picked up the bag of mulch, I threw out my back.
Interesting.
So that stress now, but you train for that. So now if that's your life every day, you adapt to it, and then your back doesn't go out anymore. So you train for it just like you train for anything else. And I don't want to go on a big monologue and talk too much. So stop me anytime.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I can't wait. I'm going to have to read this book so I can learn all about it. Because I think the step there is to how do you incrementally add stress in a healthy way? And it sounds like your book really covers that, like to just talk through what are the steps that you can take. And I love what you said earlier about how you were talking with your wife while you were on your vacation. You're like, I'm feeling too comfortable. And I think there's a definite like similarity there between stress and discomfort, right? I was just having a conversation with my coach about this today. And I was telling her, I was saying, I just want to lean into the discomfort a little bit more. I want to find, like, enjoy the discomfort. Because I think, along with what you were saying about stress, the more that we, as leaders, entrepreneurs, ambitious people who want to grow, anyone who wants to grow, you have to get comfortable with discomfort. You have to be able to actually enjoy it. Otherwise, you're never going to get anywhere that you want to go, right? You have to be able to face the pain and be able to visualize on the other side of that pain is the, the reward for going through that, that pain that you went through. Like, for example, when you go to the gym and you're lifting those weights, So I love that. I think that's such a great project and so needed today, because I think, to your point, there is a lot of misconception out there about stress. People hear the word stress and they immediately think stress is a bad word, but you're absolutely right that there is a healthy level. So very cool. Love that.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
I would love to know, I think your story, your background is just an incredible example of how to adapt to stress in a healthy way. And I just think our listeners would love to hear about your journey and where you started and kind of how you ended up where you are today. I mean, you're incredibly successful in many different realms, right? You're owning a successful business that has scaled and grown. As a chiropractor, you're a successful doctor. You have a beautiful family. You're doing a lot of great work in the community. And that is absolutely the result of your ability to handle stress in a really productive and adaptive way. And I think that goes back to like how you've handled stress historically in your life. So let's talk about that. Like, tell us a little bit about where you grew up. I understand that you grew up in Iran, correct? And that was right during a time of war. So tell our listeners a little bit more about what your early childhood was like and what you kind of took away from that.
Sure. Early childhood was easy because I was born in 1974, so that's 5 years before the revolution, and we were doing well. My dad would take us to Europe every summer for at least a month, sometimes 2 months for vacation. So we get to travel the world and have a great time and do all the great things. And what's neat is back then, Iran was considered such a amazing place. Frank Sinatra, Barbara Streisand, the Rat Pack, all these people, when they wanted to go on vacation, they would go to Iran. Now you hear people going
Really?
to Dubai for vacation, but Iran, the capital, Tehran, was called the Paris of the Middle East because it was amazingly beautiful and it was very modernized. It was the most modernized area in the entire Middle East. And the Shah of Iran had great relations with the West, and they were becoming more and more modern and advanced. Then in 1979, I remember I was 5 years old. I'm in the backseat of our family Datsun. Datsun is now called Nissan, but back in the day it was called a Datsun. And so I'm sitting in the back, and we came around the corner. We were actually on our way to go to a friend's birthday party, one of my friend's birthday parties. And we came around the corner, and it was gridlock traffic. Cars weren't moving, and there was fighting in the streets. And
Wow.
batons are flying. There's tear gas, and lots of yelling and screaming. And my dad said, "Get down and don't look." So I'm on the floor of the car, and I feel the car shake every once in a while. I hear my parents commenting, "Hey, look at this, look at that. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this. And how are we going to get out of here?" And I thought, being a little kid, 5 years old, I think this is one of those action adventure movies. And I
Wow.
bet you there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. And I want to look and see. And I remember I peeked up over the edge of the window, and the first thing I see is a guy walking with a knife stuck in his chest. And there's blood, and he's saying some kind of prayer, and he started to fall forward. And I went back down, and I never looked up again. But it feels like it was just yesterday. I mean, those images are right there, and that was the start of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, and everything changed. We had a beach house that the government confiscated because they said you shouldn't own two houses; it's against the law. They literally beat my dad and dragged us out of that house because we had two houses.
Wow.
We there was a beautiful park where we lived was up north by the Caspian Sea. So it was a small town, very beautiful. People would go there for vacations, and we got to live there. It was really nice. And this beautiful park across the street, we would go walk around the park every day after dinner, and it was a beautiful, just a nice place to be. But they turned that into a prisoners of war camp, and they put walls up, barbed wire, and these POWs would escape every couple weeks. And so there'd be bullets flying through the streets, and the kids had to run inside and hide. I mean, really, the world changed
Gosh.
instantly. Women had to dress differently; they had to cover their hair if they went outside. And there was bombing. Now, I wasn't in the areas that were bombed a lot, but I do remember one time we were staying in Tehran, and my mother said, "Make sure you turn on the radio before you go to sleep tonight." And so I turned on the radio, and there was no programming; it was silent. But you turn up the volume just in case, because they would put out air raid sirens. So a little after midnight, this siren blared through the radio, and I jumped up out of bed. And with my family, we walked down the hallway, went down the stairs to the basement of this building that we were in. And everybody, all the families from that building were in the basement waiting. And we heard the roar of this plane overhead. And then we heard the whistle of a bomb that had just been dropped. And the whistle is just getting louder and louder as the bomb is getting closer and closer. And you have no idea if that bomb is right over your head or if it's a block away. And you just
Wow.
wait and hope and pray that you're not about to die. And when you hear the explosion, it's one of those bittersweet things where you go,
Hmm.
someone just got hurt,
Yeah.
but it wasn't us. And so, anyway, it was pretty traumatic and scary. But the scariest time of my life actually wasn't the war or the fighting in the streets or the bullets. It was actually arriving in the U.S. because it's a different world. I was a kid. I was 11 years old when we finally made it to the U.S. We landed in Los Angeles, and I don't know the language. We had $500 because the Iranian government wouldn't allow you to take any more money out. So yeah, you were only allowed to leave with $500. So we show up, just my mother and I, and the place we were supposed to stay. That family took a look at us and said, "We can't keep you here. You need to go." So we had to find a place to stay with our two suitcases. The airlines lost one of our suitcases, so half my clothes were gone. So all of that stuff really, they're great. I'm so glad it all happened, but just because I wouldn't have this story to share today, uh, and that's the least of it, because ideally it's who you become that determines how well what you do work. So you look at anybody who's achieved anything in business as an entrepreneur or otherwise, they went through certain things that made them the person they are, and because of who they are, what they do succeeds. You see it all the time. Two people will apply the same formula to business. They'll do the same marketing techniques, and they use the same phone script or whatever it is. But one of them gets a lot of business, and the other one can't get any business, and they're doing the same exact thing. It has nothing to do with what you're doing. It's who you are. Who do you need to be?
Interesting.
And what you go through makes you who you are. And so, anyways, we're in Los Angeles. We finally found another home that the family was letting us stay there. But then, we had to bounce around, and finally we ended up in an apartment where we were sharing the apartment with another lady and her kids. And so it was a 2-bedroom apartment. My mom and I were in one bedroom. Her and her 3 kids were in another bedroom. We shared the kitchen and living room, and we stayed there for a year and a half. And what's really neat is this distant relative of ours called my dad one day and said, "I don't think your son should be on the West Coast in Los Angeles. I think you should move him to the East Coast. So I want to
Wow.
help you. I'm going to buy a
Interesting.
house, it's a small townhouse. I'm going to buy a house, and you move your family into that house, and you pay me
Wow.
back, but I'm not going to charge you interest. You just pay me monthly, whatever you can." Dad could afford like $800 a month, and so we paid him $800 a month, and we moved to the East Coast to Maryland, and I started going to school there. And that was I was 12 and a half, 13 years old at the time, and we stayed on the East Coast since then. So right now, you told everybody I serve on the board of directors at Habitat for Humanity. Actually, my term just ended, and my wife is now serving on the board in my
Oh,
seat. But
that's
one of the
amazing.
reasons was because this angel showed up and bought us a house. And in fact, what's amazing is after about 9 or 10 years of my dad paying mortgage payments to him, he called Dad and said, "You can stop making payments. Uh, the house is yours. The deed is yours. I'm sending it over. You're done." And so literally we were given a house. And someday, I know this will happen. I don't know when, but I'd love to call up a family and do the same thing. Just say, "Hey, I'm buying you a house, and you don't have to pay for it. It's yours. It's a gift because I'm just paying it forward. Someone did it for me, and just when you can, do it for someone else." So the next best thing is to serve on Habitat for Humanity, because that's what we do there. Is we use volunteers and donated material to build homes, and then those homes are at a reduced price, but they're beautiful homes for families that may not be able to buy a really expensive house, but they can afford that one because it was built with volunteer work.
Oh, what a beautiful story. And this whole time your father was still in Iran? Did he come to the States with you?
He
Or
would go back and forth. Yeah, he would go back and forth. I'm part of his second marriage, so he had obligations with his first marriage, and there was a lot of complexities there as well. He had stopped working pretty much when I was born. Dad was 51 when I was born,
Mhm.
so he had started a large construction company,
Yeah.
and he had built some hospitals, government buildings, apartment buildings, condo buildings, and he had sold most of them, and he sold the company. He divided it into 5 separate companies and sold all of that. But then he kept a couple of the buildings, and he would just collect rent, and
Yeah.
that's basically all he did. So, but he traveled a lot, and
Yeah.
sometimes I think he might have been in the mafia. I can't prove this.
Well,
It's just
that's so funny. You think he might have been in the mafia, huh? What makes you think so? Well, what
just the kind of people he would hang around with and the things he would
Oh,
do.
funny. I think what a cool legacy that is, and to see you're basically following in his footsteps. I mean, he was a builder. He was able to successfully scale a construction business, and you're doing the same thing. So that's pretty remarkable. I also love that beautiful story of generosity, that family member who, reached out in that way, and what a great lesson that was for you, and how that has inspired you to be able to impact so many people because of that one decision that they made. And I think, sometimes we may downplay the impact that those decisions, that those acts of generosity that we do for other people. I mean, obviously not all of us can go out and buy someone a house, right? Like, let's be real. That would be a wonderful dream to be able to do that. But even smaller acts of generosity have this ripple effect. And it's really cool to see how that one act of generosity inspired you and your wife to get so involved with the Habitat for Humanity, and all the families that you've been able to impact in that way is pretty cool. So,
Absolutely. You can't ever go wrong by being too generous.
yeah, cool. And so tell me a little bit about how you ended up becoming a chiropractor. So what made you decide to go in that direction? Let's talk there first, and then I'd love to learn more about your specific, like, uh, your what makes your practice unique in your to compared to the others that are in the area.
When we were still in Iran, my dad would take me with him, and we'd go visit these villages, and he would basically want to show me where the underprivileged lived. And a lot of these villages are on the side of the mountain with no power lines, no plumbing. And sometimes he would bring a crew and he would run power lines for them and give them plumbing, just pro
Wow.
bono, just to help
Yeah.
them out. And in this one village we were at, a woman went into labor and she was in a lot of pain and no one knew what to do to help her. A midwife came over and knelt down, examined her, stood up, said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. There's no heartbeat. The baby's not alive and
Oh my God.
she's not going to make it." And she actually left. There were no doctors, there were no hospitals, there was nothing, there was no medication. So basically, her husband was right next to her, holding her, and I'm looking in the eyes of this young woman who was just told she's not going to live another few hours. And I started to have this panic attack where your chest feels tight and you're trying to catch your breath, or your heart's pounding, and tears were coming down my face. And Dad saw me, he picked me up, he held me, he carried me out of there, he calmed me down. We climbed down the mountain. We got in our car to drive home. On the drive home, I said, "Dad, I don't want to feel like that ever again." And he said, "What are you going to do about it?" I said, "I think I'm
Wow.
going to go be a surgeon. I'll be the best surgeon in the whole world, and I'll carry my medical bag with me everywhere I go. I'm going to save lives." So I was 9 years old at the time. 10 years passed. I was 19. I was a student at George Washington University, and I wanted to, get into medical school and move on from there. And I went home for Christmas break, and Dad had a big, thick white neck brace on, and he was, you could tell, high on some severe painkillers, and he couldn't lift his arms to give me a hug to say hello. He had shooting pain down both arms, numbness and weakness in his hands. And so we went doctor to doctor trying to figure out what's wrong with Dad. And every doctor we went to said, "This is way beyond my scope. It's more serious. You got to go to this other doctor." We ended up in a neurosurgeon's office. The neurosurgeon said, "You need surgery, and we need to slice you open from the base of the skull to the bottom of the neck. We're going to break and remove the bones in the back of your spine, take pressure off the spinal cord. We're going to put rods and screws on the sides, fuse your whole neck. You'll never turn your head again. You may not regain function of your hands, but we're hoping you'll have less pain, and there's a chance you're going to die because you're old." Dad
Wow.
was 70 at the time. But there's such a thing as a young 70 and an old 70. He wasn't the young 70. And so we had two more opinions, and all three neurosurgeons said he needs surgery. We got in a taxi to go home. And I'm sitting in the back of the taxi carrying all of Dad's x-rays, MRIs, and CTs and medical records. Now they come on one CD, back then, but they were filmed.
Yeah.
This is
Uh-huh.
what, 30 years ago. And I looked over at my dad sitting next to me in the taxi, and I could tell he was in pain. He was just cringing because every bump that taxi hit was sending lightning bolts of pain through his body. Looking in his eyes, I could tell he didn't want to live anymore. And I started to have the same feelings when I was watching that woman die in her husband's arms. And I'm looking at my own dad, and I'm getting all tight in the chest, heart's pounding, having trouble catching my breath, starting to get teary eyed. The taxi driver looked at Dad and I in his rearview mirror, and he said, "Sir, I noticed you're in a lot of pain, and I know you asked me to take you home, but there's a chiropractor down the street right here. Would you rather me take you there? I don't know what he does, but I've heard he helps people like you." So I'm a 19-year-old know-it-all. I believe in drugs and surgery at the time. I said, "No, absolutely not. We need to go get our affairs together. He's having surgery next week." Dad was terrified of the surgery. So he's willing to do whatever and anything to not have that surgery. So he goes, "Yes, we're going. Let's try it." So we pull up to this place, and the place was under construction because I guess the doctor had just moved in. He was building it out, and there's drywall missing. There's dust and paint flying everywhere. We walk in and go, "This is the doctor's office?" The guy showed up, shook our hands, brought crates. There were no chairs. He brought these crates for us to sit on. He brought a view box that he plugged into an open socket in the framing that's going to be a wall someday. He took the MRIs that I was carrying, started reading the MRIs on the floor.
Mhm.
And then he looked at my dad. He said, "I can help you." He said, I'm not going to do it by breaking anything in your neck or putting you on drugs or screws or rods in your neck, and you're not going to be on painkillers for the rest of your life. What I will do is adjust the pressure off the nerves little by little using my hands. And as you notice the pressure coming off the nerves, your body will begin to self heal and self regulate. And he said, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be quick. It's going to be a long, hard, potentially painful road ahead. But if you don't want the surgery, this is your option. What do you want to do? Dad said, you tell me what to do, I'll do it. He said, you got to be here 6 days a week for 6 months. He said, done. He goes, it's going to cost you about $9,000. And he wasn't working. He goes, all right, I'll borrow it. Let's do it. So he figured out a way to pay for it, and he showed up 6 days a week for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, Dad walked into that doctor's office. The construction's done by now. There's a receptionist behind the counter. There were chairs, not crates, and the office was packed full of patients. And Dad walked up to the counter. He picked up the pen. He signed his own name on the sign-in sheet. It was the first time he could actually hold a pen and use his hands. And he was so proud of himself. He started holding that pen up in the air, started marching back and forth, showing everybody what he could do. And everyone laughed at him because, who's this old man holding a pen over his head? But the receptionist remembered how much pain he used to be in and what he couldn't do. And she started to cry. And from that moment on, Dad was able to do everything. Never had surgery, never needed more medication. Dad lived another 18 years. He lived to be 88 years old. At 88, he was
Wow.
younger than when he was 70 because he'd get up in the morning, exercise, go visit his friends. Most of them are in nursing homes, but not my dad. He's living a good life. He lived long enough to stand next to me as my best man when I got married. He lived long enough to meet my first son when he was born. And that story is not just to tell you why I became a chiropractor, but I also want to ask a question. And the question is, when Dad was sick, when he was hurting and suffering, was he the only one who suffered? And the answer is obviously no.
No.
If anyone who cared about him suffered with him, me, my mother, we all suffered too. And so what you have to ask yourself is, when you hurt, because you know what? It's really easy to let your health slide. It's really easy to not do the hard things to get healthier, get better, get stronger. And the easy thing leads you to a path where you end up depending on others and being a burden on your loved ones, and you don't want them to suffer. See, we think if I take care of me, I'm being selfish. The fact is, if you take care of you, you're being unselfish. It's the most selfless thing you can do because you're not doing it for you. You're doing the hard work so that everybody around you benefits from it. How can you give someone your best if you are not at your best?
Yeah,
Do what
that's
needs to be
true.
done, and it applies to business. Healthier people have better businesses. Healthier people are better marketers. Healthier people have
Yeah.
more clients. Healthier people have people coming around them going, what's your secret? How do you stay so young and healthy and strong?
It's
So
so true.
what makes us different, I know you asked this question earlier, what makes our practice different is that we have this long-term vision for all of you. And the vision is, first, feel better, but
Yeah.
then work on becoming stronger, because like I said, how strong you are determines how much stress you can handle, and how much stress you can handle determines how healthy you are. So feel better, get stronger, live longer, and feel younger. And it's a four-step process, but it takes decades to accomplish this. So our vision for you is, once you feel better, we train you to get stronger in the face of stress. And then we work on longevity. How do we keep adding years to your life? And then we want to make sure, how do you always feel younger than your age? And once we accomplish that, I mean, there's no end to it, because you can never be too healthy. You can never feel too good. It's not possible. And that's where it is. But we'll use technology to do that. We'll do heart rate variability, and we have a special
Okay.
device that will tell you exactly how much stress you can safely handle. And then we work on increasing that so that the stress in your
Mm.
life doesn't make you susceptible to illness and injury.
Ooh, I love that. And I think too, you pick your pain, right? People
Mhm.
like you have a choice, whatever you want to do. You can choose to, you know, not exercise, eat the bad stuff, just live a really poor lifestyle and live the easy, right? But you're going to experience the pain later, right? Like that's going to be the pain later. Or you can choose the harder pain up front, making those hard choices, leaning into the discomfort, leaning into the hard part. And man, the
Yep.
long-term rewards of that is going to be way worth the pain, right? So you kind of you choose your pain. Like what pain do you want? Do you want the pain that's going to help you grow and be stronger? Or do you want the pain that's going to turn you into someone who's weak and sick and, can't, mentally, physically. So I think that's so great. And especially love from what I was learning about your business, just the focus on, there's so much right now in our society where people are just prescribed medication to solve the symptoms, but it doesn't really resolve the deeper issue. And so I think I love that you're really focusing on a solution that isn't isn't one where you're just pushing pills on people or recommending that. And I think your dad's experience really speaks to that too. So I do have a question for you though, and I think I know the answer, but what is your why, Dr. Rashidian? Why is it that you do what you do? Why is it that you're so like, as just in speaking to you, I can see the passion that you have for you want to make an impact. You really want to make an impact in the lives of your patients, in your family, in your community. And that really comes through. What is your why? Why is it? What is it that drives you to want to do that? Like, what is it that you want to be known for and why?
Well, the Bible says, to those much is given, much is expected.
Hmm.
And I always say my mission is to honor and glorify God in everything that I do,
Oh,
to
I love that.
humbly serve His people, to build lasting relationships, and to establish an institution that'll continue to uphold these values and serve these objectives after I'm gone. And
Mm,
so I believe business is the best form of self expression.
yes, agree.
You're like an artist who creates something, but except it's alive. And
Yeah.
if you do it right, it'll keep living after you go away.
Hmm.
So that's the why, is how do I set this up so that it'll keep doing the work that I want to do even when I'm gone.
Yes. Oh, I think that's such a beautiful legacy. So I myself am a fourth generation entrepreneur. My dad owned a successful eight-figure business. My grandfather owned a separate successful eight-figure business. My great grandfather owned a separate and so I have personally experienced and seen the beautiful impact that businesses bring to communities and families. And so I just love that. That's a wonderful, powerful, powerful why. It's very
Yeah,
cool.
very nice.
Yeah.
Real quick for everyone listening, you probably think, oh, this guy's all about health, and I want to tell you something, because everyone says don't sacrifice your health for success.
Hmm.
Okay, I'll give you that. You shouldn't, but should you sacrifice your success for your health? And I think that's
Mm.
wrong too.
That's so
That's very wrong. But
yes.
what if you're a healthy person who has nothing and does
Yes.
nothing and serves no one? That what use
Yeah.
is that? Don't sacrifice your dreams, your goals, your future, your aspirations just because you want to stay healthy. You
Yes.
have to want both and believe you can have both. And I think listen. It's not an easy life.
Yeah.
I work a lot of hours and I sleep very little, but I enjoy every second of it.
Yes.
And thankfully, now we have the resources and we have the reach and we have the lifestyle that just
Mhm.
is a dream come true. I mean, even 10 years ago, if you had said this is going to be your house and these are going to be your kids and these are the things you're going to have and these are places you're going to go and these are people you're going to speak to, I'd be shocked. I'd say there's no way that's not going to happen, but it did. And I think there's what we have to understand is stay true to your dreams, but do it in a healthy way.
I
Don't
love that.
sacrifice one for the other.
Yeah. And I love that you say you can't have both because you absolutely can. You absolutely can do it in a healthy way. I'm on a mission to prove that. So
Awesome.
tell me, I mean, I love hearing about your journey and where you are today. I think it's incredibly inspiring, but I'm sure it hasn't been all roses and daffodils building this business. So I would love to hear what has been like your biggest business blunder or one of them, whatever I as an entrepreneur, I have them every day, let's be real. But is there one in particular that you think would really resonate with, our listeners who are all small business owners or aspiring small business owners who are looking to build something? And is there like a story? Love to like open the book from Dr. Rashidian and have you tell us a story about maybe one of your biggest business blunders and what you did to turn that into lemonade.
There's a lot we've been through. We've been through a lot. We were almost evicted once. We
Wow.
ended up in a place where we had a tax bill of tens of thousands of dollars and $47 in the bank. And
Wow.
we somehow got through that. But I want to tell you something that's embarrassing to me, and it's something that I'm actually ashamed of. But I think these are the moments that make us who we are. And
Yeah.
I want you to understand, we're in the business of relationships.
Yeah.
We're not in the business of making money. We're not in the business of providing healthcare or selling something or building something. Honestly, business is relationships, and relationships are the most important thing. And so, based on the mistakes I've made, I truly believe that the people you work with are more important than your clients. So
So
what you have
agree.
to do is, right now, when I hire someone, I tell them right off the bat, I want you to feel safe here, because no
Mm.
patient of ours is ever going to accuse you of something and you feel alone. I have your back every single
Wow.
time. If you're here, if I've hired you, that means I trust you and I believe in you. So if someone accuses you of something, I will take your side, not
Oh,
theirs.
I love that.
Even if it means we lose a client, even if it means we lose business, it doesn't matter. So we have to take care of ourselves. But I haven't always been like that, and there's been times where I was more worried about what patients thought than what my staff thought. One particular story, I had a doctor who worked for us, and he had been with us for 3 months, but he hadn't learned the things that he needs to learn. He was really struggling with learning. And I want to premise this because I have a learning disability. I have dyslexia. So I have to learn a specific way. Thankfully, God blessed me with this amazing memory where I memorize everything I see, hear, and read,
Oh, it's amazing.
which helps. But not everybody's like that. But I know that I also have a disability when it comes to that. And so I'm sitting in the room with this doctor. And he's a doctor, so he's made it through chiropractic school.
Yeah.
And he's passed all the tests. He's passed his boards. Clearly, he is a very highly qualified
Yeah.
person,
Right.
intelligent. And
Hmm.
I asked him this dumb question. I said, "You know what? You're not learning this. Do you have a learning disability?" And it was the most insulting thing I've ever said. And I came from an honest place.
Right. Right.
But you never ask someone if they have a learning disability. I mean, it's an insult.
Oh
And
man.
so he said no, and then he left. And the next day he gave me his letter of resignation. I apologized, and
Yeah.
we worked it out. Um, but that is a terrible mistake. So we want to make sure, you know
Yeah.
what, if you have employees, they're there because of you. So you
Yeah.
have to treat them well. And that's a moment I regret every day. I think about it, but it made me someone who respects our employees a whole lot more. Hopefully, I treat them better. Leadership is key. You have to be a leader, and I believe our organization is what we call an upside down org chart. Everybody's seen
Mhm.
those org charts, right? It looks like a pyramid,
Yes.
right? You're at the top,
Pyramid.
and
Yeah.
then you've got your direct reports and the middle management and the customer service reps, and it's a big pyramid. And what I do is I flip that upside down, and I go, our
Mhm.
customers are here, and our customer service people serve those customers, and the managers serve the
Oh, I
customer
love
representatives, and then the upper leadership crew, they serve the management team, and I serve them. So I'm at the bottom and I have to serve them. And so what we do is we tell everybody, listen, tell me your goals, your dreams, your aspirations. What do you want to accomplish? Your time here. You're going to be here, what, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 40 hours a
that.
week. What do you want to accomplish? What do you want out of this at the end of it?
Yeah.
And then we write down those goals. And then my job, we call that reverse accountability. So they hold me accountable for helping them hit their goals. I am accountable, not me holding them accountable for making my life better or making my
Yeah.
dreams come true. It's so upside down org chart and the culture of reverse accountability. And I think having learned that, and it's a process. I still offend people. I have a strong personality.
You mean
I
you're not
express
perfect?
myself. No,
Most
no.
type A do, right?
Unfortunately, I wish I was. But
I've got to be
yeah.
honest, I've never heard of the upside down org chart in all my years in business. That is something new that I just learned, and I'm super intrigued by that. I love it because I think it really emphasizes what I believe makes up every great culture, no matter where you go, is that service mindset, right? You're a person of faith. I am deep person of faith as well. And I think that's one of the things I really love about, the Christian faith or any faith is that it's really focused on how can I serve? What can I be doing to help support them? And serve God and use my God-given talents to help other people. And I think my experience has been when you lead that way, oh my gosh, your impact is so much greater. It's just I've worked in organizations where it's been the opposite, and you see it
Mm,
makes everyone play small. And the
yeah.
minute that you focus on serving and trying to help support and teach and guide rather than directing, telling, whatever, you can it just makes a huge impact. So that's so beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that very vulnerable business blunder. And it sounds like you really, and I think that's important for people to know is like we all make mistakes. And sometimes we're going to make these really embarrassing, shameful mistakes, but how you've turned it into basically the way that you've built your culture and what you've done to kind of rectify that going forward is really inspiring. So thank you. Okay,
My
I have a
pleasure.
few more questions for you, and it's about, I'm in marketing. I own a content marketing agency. Let's talk about marketing. What have you tried to do to market your business since you started, and what's worked and what hasn't?
So my wife and I opened the business together back in 2006, and we didn't have a marketing budget. That house that we were gifted, I
Yes.
mortgaged that and took out $43,000. I put 10,000 in the bank for operating expenses, and the rest of it went towards startup costs, and
Wow.
which is actually really low because our second location cost us a whole lot more than that, $220,000 to open, but. So there was no money for marketing, and so my wife and I decided we would just go door to door. Now there was no COVID back then, and so we would dress up in early morning. We'd go out and hang door hangers on people's doors, and then mid morning we drew a mile wide radius around our location, and we met every business owner, every manager, every shop,
Mm.
worker in that 1 mile radius. So from then to like early afternoon, we'd go to restaurants and
Mhm.
shops and stores and say, "Hey, can we ask you a couple questions? We're looking to come to town. This is what we're thinking." And then afterwards in the evening, we would go door to door residentials and we'd knock on doors. So, and some of them would open the door and be really kind and answer our questions. And some of them
Yeah.
would invite us in and make tea and have us sit down with them. And some of them would slam the door in our face. And every time you are about to knock on a door or ring a doorbell, there's this severe anxiety going, who are we going to meet and what are they going to say to us? But we met 1,200 people in that span of time before we opened our doors. And so we'd go home and we'd write thank you notes to everybody we met. And we had their address because we went to their place. So we wrote a thank you note and signed it and sent it to them saying, hey, you were so gracious. It was great to meet you, and we'll send you some information when we're ready to open our office. So then we had this list of 1,200 people that we had already sent the thank you note to. Then when we were about to open the office, we sent letters out saying, hey, thanks to you and all your help, we finally were able to open, and here's what our location is, and we want to, as a gift and as a thank you, we want to offer you a free evaluation. Come on in,
Mhm.
we'll evaluate your spine, your x-rays on us, no charge. We just want to thank you. So our first week, we had 18 new patients come into the office, and everything built up from there. So marketing is threefold, I think. You
Yep.
have your advertising, you have your branding, and then you have public relations. So
Mhm.
we want to make sure we're doing those things. Branding is how do we make sure our name is visible in as many places as possible? even in the office. Like when you walk in, our floor mat says Mid-Atlantic Chiropractic Center, in
Yeah.
both offices. We want logos in different places on every page, every form,
Yeah.
the TVs, if the screensavers on the computers,
Yep.
because name recognition is huge. So
Yeah.
branding
Yep.
and your
Brand
cups.
sailing.
We have these water bottles that we give our patients. So when patients come in, we give them ice cold bottle of water, but it's wrapped in our logo. And anyways, branding. You want your name to be seen. Your sign needs to be visible. And advertising is, everyone knows about advertising. Nowadays there's
Yeah.
Google ads and there's Facebook. Back in the day, we did newspaper ads, and we'd write
Mhm.
up advertorials, I guess, where like you'd write a
Mhm.
story, but it's really advertisement,
Yeah.
and we put those in the papers, and that did well. Nowadays, I don't think that does as well anymore, and even Facebook's gotten kind of different. But that's all
Mhm.
your department. My department is public relations. That's where most of our success came from. Is get
Mm.
in the community
Yep.
and just give and serve and do, and it always comes back. So being involved in Habitat for Humanity helped a tremendous amount. So there was a time where Habitat needed a truck, and I go, hey, this will be great. I'm going to get 4 other businesses with me. The 5 of us are going to buy this truck,
Yep.
and we're going to wrap it with our logos. And then Habitat for Humanity is going to drive it to every construction site, and the whole city is going to know our business. And I
Yeah.
called attorneys' offices, doctors' offices,
Mhm.
other construction crews. I called everywhere. Nobody wanted to help pay for this truck. So I go, I guess I'll buy the truck. So we bought the truck for Habitat for Humanity and wrapped it. Half of the truck says Habitat for Humanity, half of it says Mid-Atlantic Chiropractic Centers. So, and this thing's going around town, all
Mhm.
over the place when they're transporting, equipment and supplies, or whenever they have an event, they park it right out front, and everyone's like, "Wow, Mid-Atlantic! What's Mid-Atlantic Chiropractic have to do with Habitat for Humanity?" And then they get to talk about it, and then they invite me
Yeah.
to speak at different events, and when I speak, I just say, hey, I'm a chiropractor from Mid-Atlantic Chiropractic, and then I speak. But then that leads to people going, hey, I've been looking for a chiropractor. Maybe I'll go to your practice. And same with, through church, we serve a lot in church. And then anytime we want to do something for marketing, we always team up with a nonprofit. So we'll say, hey,
Yeah.
the Child Advocacy Center against child abuse. We'll say, we're going to do a fundraising for you. Can we use your name? They're like, sure. And so we say, hey, every dollar that comes in through this event, we're giving to Child Advocacy Center. We advertise that, and people come and they become patients, and then we give a lot of money to them. It's just a win-win situation. So I think public relations is the greatest opportunity in today's market. Then you promote those things, and all of a sudden people love seeing that because they go, wow, these guys really just give and do a lot for the community. You can't ever give without receiving. It just seems like it comes
Mhm.
back. A little
Totally.
while ago, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, we started something called MAC Christmas. MACC is our acronym for Mid Atlantic
Uh-huh.
Chiropractic Centers. And MAC Christmas is we call local nonprofits and we say, will you nominate families in need?
Mhm.
And our patients are going to buy presents for their children. And
Mhm.
so they nominate the family. The family says, this is our wish list for our kids' Christmas. And we put those on our Christmas tree. And our patients pick up and start buying. We used to do Toys for Tots. But then I
Yeah.
saw this article that said the presents you collect today sit in a warehouse for 2 years. Then they eventually do get to
Oh,
children on
interesting.
Christmas,
Yeah.
but they don't go right away. And we never know who they go to or whatever. So we said, we're going to have a big party. We're going to have a Christmas party. And all these families are going to come to that party. We rented a hotel and we had all these families come, and a lot of
Awesome.
these were kids whose parents are incarcerated, so they're in prison,
Mhm.
and so they're being raised by foster parents or aunts and uncles, and they all showed up. We had Santa Claus there, and the newspaper was there, the TV was there, and everybody's covering this. We were on the front page of the Frederick News Post as the
Wow.
chiropractor who gave Christmas presents to all these people. And our patients were allowed to come and see these families, meet the families they bought presents for.
Cool.
And what was amazing was we told the families, give us a list and we're going to buy you one thing on your list, not everything. Well, when our patients picked up those lists, they bought everything. So every kid got several presents. Some of those presents were like an Xbox or a
Wow.
bike, like a mountain bike, not a cheap one, but expensive ones. Our patients went over the top, and there's this mountain of presents on the side, and these kids are all coming in, and we're giving them their presents. They're going home with bags of toys. It was beautiful. So, I think things like that, public relations, is the third prong of marketing that people miss out on.
That's a beautiful story. I think that speaks to the wonderful culture that you've created with your customers, right? In marketing, we're seeing a really big movement towards community-led marketing, where your customers basically become the engine that fuels your new sales rather than, you know, promoting on Google Ads or Facebook, right? And so there's this really exciting movement happening on like how can you leverage your existing customers evangelist and have them basically sell for you, and do that really well. And I just love that it sounds like you have a really engaged community of customers and I just love hearing that story. The other thing I heard just along with public relations is just you hit the nail right on the head, Dr. Rashidian. It's about relationships. It's about building those relations. That's what great marketing is. It's about building relationships with people and really understanding what their needs were. So when I heard you say you went door to door so that you could get to know each one of those potential patients. Those were your ideal customers. You wanted to know them, understand them, and help them. And you took the time to actually go out of your way to meet them, send them thank you cards, that it's all about building those relationships. So, man, I could talk to you all day. This is awesome. This is like, I can't tell you, it's like a master class. I'm learning so much from you and from
That's great.
just your energy and everything. So thank you so much for your time. I want to be mindful of. So
Of
I do
course.
have one final question for you. And this is just a question of what advice would you give to any new entrepreneur who's maybe just getting started? Maybe there's someone listening who's, younger in high school or college and like just dreaming of owning a business someday, or someone like us who are in the trenches and we've been doing it for years. What advice would you give to them? What would be like, something that you would tell them to help them go for? I mean, you've given tons of advice, but what would be your final words of advice for anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur
The
or is
start of anything is absolutely beautiful. The
Mm,
excitement you have right now as you start your business, you'll never have ever again. You have to enjoy it. You can do everything. It can be hard, it can be difficult. You could be sleeping on the floor, you could be sleeping in your shop on the floor with nothing. And trust me, you're going to miss those days. So enjoy it. I remember I watched an interview with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. They're friends, and they were at
yeah,
MIT, and it's on YouTube. Most of the people have already watched it, but there's one time this business student stands up and asks a question, and he says, "If you were to start over from the beginning, how would you do it?" And these two guys, so Warren Buffett's a lot older than Bill Gates, but they were both, they're not
yeah,
young. They lit up like young children. They both simultaneously go and watch it because it's on YouTube. They both go, "We'd love to start over." Those beginning days were amazing, and there was this excitement, like, oh, we would
yeah,
do this, we do this, we do this. So listen, number one, you're gonna be dealt a whole lot of terrible things, and there's gonna be resistance. There's gonna be
Res-
obstacles. Your enemies are gonna show up out of nowhere, and you have friends who are just waiting to say, "I told you
yes,
you wouldn't succeed," and
yes,
that's okay. That's when you know you're on the right track.
yes,
That's when you know you're going in the
so
right way.
true.
If everybody says you're going to do great and you probably will fail. It's the people who go against the grain. Be
Yeah.
countercultural, be counterintuitive. Don't do what everybody else is doing. Go for what you want and
Mhm.
bootstrap it. Don't wait for the perfect situation, the perfect
Yeah,
moment, perfect amount of money. Just go for it. You don't have money to market, go door to door. You don't have
exactly.
money. My first office, it was in 2003, and I found a guy who was an urgent care center medical doctor at nighttime. And I said, "Hey, who's in your office during the day?" He said, "Nobody." I said, "Can I rent your space from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.?" Because he went from 6 p.m. to
Mhm.
8 a.m. And
Yeah.
he goes,
Wow.
"Sure." I mean, it's empty anyways. I said, "I could only pay you $1,000 a month rent." He said, "Fine." you can find those opportunities. And so I started, my first office was an urgent care center, and all the equipment was his. I just showed up with a cell phone. I put my cell phone in the newspaper and the yellow pages back when there were yellow pages, and people started calling. We started a business. That business did really well. I sold that company. I owned half of it by the time I walked away, and I sold half of it for $54,000. I started it with $4,500. So $4,500 turned into $54,000, which helped me open the next office and the next office. And it just grows from there. So go after it. Be excited. When something bad happens, just be like, yes, I'm just like those other people. When something goes wrong, yeah, that's good. This is what I need. Just use that as fuel and you'll get there.
Oh, that's such a great mindset. I love it. And just the way you just had that was so much energy, like embracing it with such energy is so cool. And the resourcefulness, like I think people, to me, my opinion is resourcefulness is the secret superpower of successful businesses. And maybe it's not so secret, but people talk a lot about like, oh, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be majorly smart like Elon Musk, you've got to be this genius or whatever. And all these, I just think like truly like the most gifted entrepreneurs I've ever known have been incredibly resourceful like yourself. I love that. It's like my daughters, we were on spring break last week and they were so bored. They're just like, we're waiting for the tour. We were in Paris and we were taking them to Versailles and we're all sitting there and they're bored. They've got nothing to do. And my youngest one sees this old wine cork on the ground. It's like little tiny little wine cork. And she just walks over to it and starts kicking it around like a soccer ball. And then my oldest jumps in and the next thing you know, they're laughing and kicking around this little wine cork, and it just was like so inspiring to me watching them. I thought to myself, you don't need, like, all you need is just a silly little wine cork. And in your business, like, where are the old wine corks that you're totally not even paying attention to that could become something, could turn your business around or whatever. So I love that. This has been so amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Rashidian.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Is there any final words that you'd like to share today? You get the last
No,
word.
I appreciate this. I want to show you the cover of my book. This is the book.
Yes, please do.
If you're interested, go on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or any other bookstore. It should be everywhere. It's called Cracking the Stress Secret, How to Turn Pressure into Power. I'd love it if you pick up a copy. If you're in the area, swing by. I'll sign it for you. And anyways, I enjoyed it very, very much. I'm thankful that you had me and gave me this opportunity. And I wish you all the best of luck in everything, your business, your podcast, and everyone listening. Hopefully you got excited. Hopefully you're going to, turn that into a passion to pursue your dreams.
Very good. Yep. And where can people reach you if they want to connect with you?
We have a YouTube channel called Real Chiropractic. We have our website is Mid-Atlantic and my author website is drrashidian.com. So any of those have opportunities for you to contact me directly. Emails go to our front desk. Our staff will forward those to me.
Tales of Misadventure is produced, edited, and moderated by Julie Basello with Basello Media. Music by Marcus Way. Special thanks to our amazing guests and the entire DMG Digital team. Visit us at dmgdigital.io to get access to all our podcast interviews and other helpful resources. And if you'd like to get updates on the latest and greatest, please sign up for our email newsletter. We'll see you next time for another episode of Tales of Misadventure. Until then, keep falling forward.